Welcome to Now Serving a Site of Therapy, a client's introductory guide into the therapeutic world. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. To schedule a therapy appointment, call us at 650-223-5065. For more information on this and other related topics, check out our blog at isotherapy.com, where you can also contact us through our website. I'm your host, Dalton Huckaby, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm grateful you've joined me. Welcome to this week's episode of Now Serving a Site of Therapy, a client's introductory guide into the therapeutic world. Today, we are joined by Dr. Veronica Eyo, who is a licensed clinical social worker, therapist, and educator specializing in maternal and postpartum mental health. She works with high-achieving, overwhelmed mothers navigating identity shifts, anxiety, depression, and the invisible emotional labor of motherhood. As a clinician, professor, and a mother of three, Dr. Eyo brings both clinical expertise and lived experience to conversations about healing, boundaries, and sustainable motherhood. Her work centers on helping mothers reconnect with themselves while caring for their families. And we are super stoked to have you join us for this topic, Veronica.
I'm so excited to be here.
And so kind of like we were talking just now, right? You have not only like the professional experience, right, but also your personal experience that kind of feeds into that as well.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been licensed? I'm just curious.
I've been licensed. Well, how old is my kid? It's gonna be 9 years. Actually, it is 9 years this month. I got licensed in January. It is 9 years.
9 years this month. Nice.
Yeah, 9 years.
Right.
9 years. Yeah.
Nice.
So, I like being a therapist. I have that personal involvement, like obviously being a mother. But in terms of like speaking about this, quickly, like I got into this role after I had my first. I was not able to find one. I didn't know I had postpartum depression. Two, as a clinician, right? And I really couldn't find someone, especially like a woman of color, that could understand. Like, yes, my baby's healthy, and I'm still thinking about one day I'm gonna have to tell my son, like, because of the color of your skin, you can't put on a hoodie, the things that maybe not all therapists think about. So because of that, that's why I got into it. I was like, I want to be that therapist to be able to provide that space.
Like you're again kind of pretty passionate, not only about being a therapist, but also about this topic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got licensed 9 years ago. I then, from personal experience, I had a child, and just based on like my experience, nothing was wrong, but there was just some elements about motherhood, especially my identity, that I felt like I would have benefited from. One, obviously seeing a therapist, but also a therapist that was coming in from this lens of motherhood is not the same for everyone and how that kind of looks like. And so, then 8 years ago, once my child was 1, I started taking so much training about this. I have gone to conferences, I've gotten certified. It's just something that I'm really, really passionate about and that I really love to talk about because I think it's important. I think, unfortunately, there's a misconception about what motherhood or how motherhood should be. And I'm definitely here to say you can make it how you would like it to be. And that's okay.
Yeah, especially like when we have either like family or social pressures, right? Like you said, it has to be, or even the way we grew up too, right? The way we grew up and the way we even look at our parents kind of idealize in certain ways, right? And I can't help but think about like when when we're kids, we think, oh man, if I ever have kids, I'm going to parent differently. I'm going to let them stay up late at night or whatever, different crazy stuff like that, right? But what we're talking about here is a little bit more real than that, but it just kind of fuels the idea that whenever we're growing up, there are certain ideals that we have about what parenting might mean. And to your point, like sometimes some of these kind of like mental health conditions that we might be experiencing, like we don't even know what's happening. And so I think that kind of part of this process is being able to identify what is going on, and that can be a great starting point. But when we kind of think about from first, we always like to define things, right? I'm gonna say this almost every episode, right? We like to define things that we're
Uh-huh.
talking about. And so how would you identify, what is it, kind of postpartum depression or
I think I would say,
maternal mental health? Yeah, what
yeah,
would you
so I would
say?
say maternal mental health is kind of like the big term. And with that, then there are different, it can go to postpartum depression. And what is postpartum depression is, so backtrack, the baby blues, you kind of up and down in hormones, kind of normalize first, maybe 2 weeks-ish after having a baby. Anything after that and up to a year is considered postpartum depression if you are showing signs of depression. The same thing with postpartum anxiety. But also with maternal mental health, it's not always just depression or anxiety. There's OCD, there's psychosis, specifically related to when depending on like where your mental health is at and your experience and all these things. And so while I think maternal mental health kind of encompasses it all, I do also want to pop the belief that it's only because I feel sad after I had a baby. It's a lot more complex than that. It doesn't just have to be depression and anxiety.
Yeah, we even recently did an episode on grief and loss, right? So I can imagine there's some grief and loss in here as well, as far as like when you talk about, like you mentioned it earlier, around identity
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
well. And so would you say kind of like that aspect of identity also kind of ties into some of these other kind of mental health matters, like how that you're talking about, like how does that tie in?
Well, okay, when I'm looking at the identity shift in motherhood, one of the first things that I will say to anyone that I meet that's a mother, but also specifically to clients, is that like many mothers feel guilty for being like, I miss myself. I miss who I was before motherhood. But I love my kids. And there is a societal pressure, unfortunately, but I think we're doing work on it, of kind of like, well, your baby's healthy, so you should be okay, right? Like that should be your identity. And there just has been so much research about, yes, you can be happy about being a mother, but also we're more complex than that. Just because I'm a mother doesn't take away the things that I enjoy that bring me joy, right? And then there's so much research that talks about, it's very biased, but based on this research, that a child's number one indicator of happiness in childhood is if their mother is happy. And so that's not the message that we're sent. It's more of like, you sacrifice everything for motherhood, you do, and one of the first things that I do when I work with clients is really, one, like acknowledge the guilt and remind that just because you feel guilt doesn't mean that you love your kids less. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mom, because it is a level of loss. And this can happen with your first or like your fifth baby. The reality is we're still growing up too. We are still growing up. And the loss may be different. And there's something just beautiful about having a space to identify, like, yeah, this does feel like a loss of who I am. And now I really want to talk about like, how do I want to go moving forward? So like validating the grief, identifying who I was before, and then now that these children are here, perhaps in the way that I would like to move forward, or still just conceptualizing being a parent. There's a lot.
Yeah, when you were talking, a few things stood out for me, and one is kind of like that aspect of like, okay, can I still have my sense of kind of like individualism, right? Like like you said, when you have the child, right, it's kind of like, okay, I have to do it all, right, and I have to be this all, right, for this one person. And it's kind of, it sounds like when you talk about identity, it sounds like losing that sense of individuation, right?
Yeah.
And in that is like you said, it's like being a mother is one part of you, right? From this parts framework, we can think, okay, yeah, being a mother is one part of you, just like, hey, if there's another part of me that's a musician, right? Or another part of me that's an artist, or whatever it is. And so, um, being able to identify that, yes, I am being a mother is very important to me, but also there's more to me than that part. And being able to honor those parts, because it seems to me that if we lose that sense of individuation and don't honor these other parts of us, then that's how some of these other mental health conditions could perhaps start to become onset, is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, when we hear the term like empty nesters, right? It's like it's very common to hear of like mothers who are like, so now what next? And have feelings about that. Or sometimes this is where we see like enmeshments in families of the mother having a hard time, in the natural, I guess is the natural normal course of things, because I think that if we're talking about, I think you mentioned earlier about like our childhoods and what we saw, I I'm going to say that I think the generation or our parents' generation, even before, very much is motherhood all about these kids. That is it. Everything that you do has to be put on stop because this is all that you get. And I can understand that to an extent, but then also we've done research and research shows actually no, right? We have different senses of research that show like giving your kids too much attention is a thing. This is where we come to like the kids who are like what is it? Not called tiger mom, but when you're like over your kids so much, right? Like that doesn't necessarily
They call the helicopter mom. Yeah, helicopter mom. Yeah.
So it's like we have that piece. And a funny example that I have for this is like, again, we're here for our kids, we're advocating. So I teach a graduate level course at Pepperdine. It's about how do we do intakes? Okay. Graduate is a key part. I have had an email from a graduate student with their mom CC'd on the email. It's only until we have those examples that we're like, oh, maybe we were too much, or like, how can we kind of balance it to where you are? Because something that I remind myself and that I tell my clients all the time is you don't stop being a person when you become a mother. Unfortunately, society does treat us that way, but you're still a person, and it is going to feel like resistance, unfortunately, to try to really identify yourself and how you want to move forward in your motherhood journey. And just because you figure out what yourself is right now, that's not the case in a year, 2 years, as your child grows or as you grow. And so it's very fluid.
That's well, one thing that came to mind to me is when you said like when we kind of think about some of these societal pressures around motherhood, especially kind of like early on when the child's first born, is that if the mother is also working in other countries, what's the maternity leave in other countries, right? Like months, right? Months on it, right?
Yes,
in the US,
absolutely.
It's like nothing. And
in
so
UK,
there's that pressure too.
Yeah, in the UK, it is a year. So it's a year off. Something that I didn't even think about, but is true. Here in the States, when we have our first like follow-up appointment with the baby, all those things, we leave our house to go do that. In the UK, they don't do that. The nurse and the doctor come to you for every single visit in that first year of that baby's life. Because those small things do make a difference. I think
absolutely, yeah, as far as having the time to that attachment, right, and to be able to provide that care. And if again, we can't help but think of like how like society's structured in a way to help us feel like, okay, this is what I can kind of expect over the course of the next year. I'm going to have this time available to me, right? But without that, it's like everything just feels like so predictable and up in the air. It almost seems like.
Yeah, it definitely, a con of living in the States is this piece. And I think as we continue to put attention towards maternal mental health and identity, and also kind of coming to the idea that like, as a country, we say we love kids, but you can't love kids unless you support their parents, right? So whether that is with like, food stamps or things, or it's like, just, can I afford my childcare? Like, we can't ignore finances in this piece. And so sometimes I've had clients who've like have a hard time in like saying like, this is what society says about that they love kids, but they're not acting like it. They're not acting like it. And I feel alone. I feel alone in this process.
And so certainly that's where kind of support systems can come into play, right? I'm just kind of like curious, like on a personal level, were there certain kind of like support systems that kind of helped you kind of navigate through some of the personal experiences that you've had that maybe like listeners might be able to like go, I hadn't thought about that way before, or might be able to utilize?
Yeah. So I did not have this, but I also had 3 kids. So with the first one, it wasn't necessarily all perfect. But by the second, especially by the 3rd child, it was like a walk in the park to become a mom and the thing. But I know first it comes with your healthcare team. Okay. Like when you give birth, who's on that team and what are the things that they're telling you about childhood, about giving birth or like moving forward with it. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of doctors that kind of speak about, well, you got the baby here. Like, that's okay. Like, it'll all go away, right? But when we talk about like healthcare, right? Like, you want to be able to talk to your doctor. And it could be something subtle. Like, I know for myself in my first one, I only heard it then, but I didn't hear for the other 2. I was like being examined and I flinched out of like some random person touching me, not random person, but someone not me touching me. And my doctor looked at me and was like, you're not going to be able to give birth naturally because you just flinched at me touching you. And I'm like,
What?
Exactly. Like things like that. Right. So I think first starts off with healthcare, your team. And I had totally different experiences with my sons, right? I had healthcare providers, whether that was OB, the nurse, who all, one, were experienced, and 2 were like, it's okay if you're kind of struggling. Like, I think so you have a baby, then you come in for a follow-up sometime around there, and you visit your OBGYN and they ask you, or they'll give you a survey to the PHQ-9 to assess for depression. And this is kind of the first time maybe people start to hear about postpartum depression or anxiety a little bit. And I remember for both my sons, when I went in to complete it, it was a little bit higher, right? I also want to say I became like a mother of 2 and then a mother of 3 really quickly. But I appreciated someone just looking at me and like, yeah, no, like, how do we do this? Like, this is a lot. Or also just a conversation of like, it's okay if you feel this way, right? Because I had doctors who knew my history, one of the initial questions was like, okay, Veronica, you're feeling like this right now. The hormones are up and down. You do have 2 kids under 2, or you have 3 kids under, let's explore other avenues. Yes, you need therapy, and I think that that's good, but also the support of like, do I perhaps need medication to help stabilize me in this season, right? Which I did not have for my first. So healthcare, then, right, have the baby. Then after is the piece of like having a doctor that is well-informed, that will not say things such as like, I wouldn't recommend you have medication, but because it's going to come up in your breast milk, or like things like that, right? Like I really want a doctor that's really well informed and that normalizes.
And that's going to let you make your decisions about you, right? You just like how we work with clients in that they are the expert of their own lives. Like similarly here, right? Like, hey, like I kind of feel like I need this other thing to kind of like, can we just explore some options? Like, yeah, and having that support team to be able to have your back on that.
Absolutely. Or even just giving the option. Unfortunately, people don't, because of their own beliefs about it. I'm a big, you take whatever meds you need to go to get you to be your healthiest and, all that thing. I also strongly believe that everything is in a season. So if I'm struggling really hard, there are some mothers who struggle really hard in newborn season, newborn 1 year, right? And that's okay. But then there are some that when that child becomes 3 or 4, I will say for myself, this is not my favorite age of being a mother. Because the questions of like, but why? Why do I have to do this? I don't want to do this. You know, like a preview of teenage life, right? So like, I know for me, I got through those years. But once I went through it with my daughter, I'm not a big fan of 3 or 4. We got through it. We're past it now. But like that's okay. And that doesn't mean that I was a terrible mom or things like that. So piggybacking on that, there's like the healthcare piece, also them being informed. I am part of this organization is called Postpartum Support International. That's actually where I've gotten my certification to work with this population. Little plug, they also have more than just trainings. They help a lot of mothers in the work that they do.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah, they do like support groups. They do like peer-to-peer support, because sometimes you do just need someone. And circling back to things that I had, I joined a Mommy and Me group. And for me, I was struggling being like, okay, I'm like up at all hours of the night. I'm trying to nurse. I've never done this before, but they say it's so natural. So why is this not working natural? And I remember having a friend, we are still friends now. Our children are 1 day apart. And I remember just being able to talk to her in the middle of the night when we're both trying to figure it out. And there was just something beautiful about us in that first year going about it together, being like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like the blind leading the blind here, but at least I have someone there with me, right?
Yeah, there can be a lot to be said for that, sharing that shared experience. Yeah.
So Postpartum Support International has peer support if you're kind of like needing it. It also gives more information also for clinicians about like, what about postpartum psychosis? What are the signs of postpartum OCD or things like that? So it's a great organization just in general that I think maybe would be a great tool to highlight. But I think like in my work with that organization, part of what they do is also to educate medical doctors about maternal mental health, because it's not even like a full class that's talked about in medical school. So
is that right?
It's a small part, right? And then you just go about delivering babies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're even saying like in the course of doctors like doing their studies, like it could even kind of like go back to like it kind of like, I don't know, we probably don't have influence on that, but sure would be nice.
Yeah, but Postpartum Support International, that's one of the things that they do is their missions is like, it's not just all on clinicians. It's not all just, it's a whole system as a whole. So in what team does a mother or a person that identifies as a mother touch, and how can we make sure to like inform them? So like the medical school one, I've known because I've been to a lot of the trainings. And so that has always been something that when I network with people, I'm always curious about. I'm like,
and I see, so they can advocate for that.
Yeah, because you need to. Now they're
absolutely. Who else is going to do it, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what the CEO said. She's like, someone has to do it. I was like, I agree. You did a good job.
Like, what would be an approach to support someone in helping them to define if they do have would you say like perinatal mood and anxiety, like PMADs, right? Or like you said, or like any other kind of mental health disorders that might come up with postpartum?
Okay, 2-part. I'm gonna make that 2-part. So one, as just like a normal person, you have someone in your life who just gave birth. How can I support my friend? How can I support my family member? It's the way I kind of like to explain it, right? We go to Starbucks and the barista says like, hey, how are you doing? And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. This is what I order. That is what's happening when you ask a mother, hey, how are you doing? It's just the automatic response that comes out doesn't speak sometimes to what's happening inside. And so as a friend, it's it's the thing of like, let me sit down and like hold your hand, but no, but really, like, really, how's it going? Like, you know, like, it is the piece of like knowing this person in your life, and being like, okay, how can I support you? Like, what is it that I can do? For me as a clinician, I have all my mothers who are pregnant identify areas that they would need support in. So that even, because asking for help is kind of rough. Say that.
Candy. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something about like, oh, okay, no, my therapist already told me this. This is the areas that I would need help with, right? And so like as a friend, when asking them of what it is that they could get support in, or just being with them. Because sometimes part of like the perimenopause or the mood disorders is there's just a lot of tears. There's a lot of the anxiety, and we can't all fix it. Like, for example, let's say it's being caused because my child doesn't sleep at night. Well, I remind people that like lack of sleep or being kept from sleeping is like used in like military or times of war as a thing of torture. So not that your baby's trying to do that to you. Like
right. But you're being tortured.
Yeah, but you're being tortured. But they're so cute. And I think I 100% believe that is why they're cute, so that we keep them going. But so yeah, so as a peer, so as a friend, I think when they say, oh, everything is going good, it's the coming back and be like, no, but really, like, how you doing? How you doing? You know, it's the when you go out to eat with them and maybe you are getting like a coffee or something, like, I'll hold the baby for you while you have that coffee. No, my hand is not going to get tired, right? Or it's also the respect of being like, is it okay if I touch your baby? Because some women, depending on where their mental health is, they may not feel comfortable with it. And so as I think, this is where I'm like, emotional intelligence is so important. But yeah, as a friend, just or family member, just taking the time to say, I see you. I may not always know the right words to say. I will say, saying you should be happy because your baby's healthy is not the thing to say. Just want to make sure you put it out there. No, it's not the thing to say. But it's like taking the time to like being there for them. And then as a clinician, one of, at least my style, okay, I believe that as much information as you have is good for you, right? And you make decisions based on the information that you have right now, okay? Not in the future, not like right now. And so that means that there is a chance that you might make a decision that may not be what you have wanted it to be. And that's okay. Like, we're supposed to, because we're growing up too.
So letting go of those kind of perfectionism tendencies is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it can come natural, right? Because, hey, I want to protect my child. I want to do the best for my child, right? Again, kind of want to do it all, be it all, you know. And so, but being able to allow ourselves that grace, right? To know, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm also going to learn and trying not to make the same mistake too many times, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But see, like, even with that, sometimes when I talk with clients, we're like, but I am hard on myself. I'm never going to not be hard on myself, right? I'm like, okay, so I need you to pretend whether it's like your child. Would you tell your child, like, you're the most awful parent in the world because you did this and this and this? Probably not, right? And so maybe, right, so sometimes I'll zoom out and use their own child or a very close friend to kind of give them the words or the ability to be able to say that to themselves. Like, for me, Veronica, it's okay if the baby cried, you know. Or I think a big one, because rage is a big one that comes here, is like, it's okay that I put my baby down in the crib and walked out and let the baby cry because I was so overstimulated. And that's the best thing I could have done for my baby, because well, I think, as we know, we've had circumstances where that has led to like the shaken baby syndrome or like things like that. And so in that moment, you might think like, oh, I'm being such an awful parent because I can't even handle my kid. But in reality, look at that self-awareness. Look at the ability that you put them somewhere where they're safe. All right. And that you exited that room. Right. Like those things happen. And that in itself is a win. That is the best thing you could have done for that child.
Absolutely. And going back to what you were saying earlier, too, like the baby's going to be happy if the mother's happy, right? So being able to see it in that light, too, perhaps, right? Like, okay, well, I'm doing this for both of us, right? But I'm also going to allow myself that time to be able to regroup, and then I can come back. And then, like you said, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And you just need to hear it so many times. A lot of the work that I do is I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. We're not giving a manual, which always blows my mind when we think of you're like, they give you this child and then they're like,
but there's no manual.
Yeah. Like put it in the car seat, put this child in the car seat. And it's like, I think of the first time I didn't drive home. My husband at the time was driving us home and I was just like, we were like a crawl going home. Like, why is everyone driving so fast? Like, you're just so sensitive to it.
Thanks for tuning in this week. Be sure to check out part 2 of our discussion with Veronica around maternal mental health next week as we explore reclaiming your identity, identifying the losses, using self-compassion, and getting creative with adaptability skills.